Hey guys, gals, and my fellow Stone Age caveman. Welcome to the channel, The Modern Caveman. I'm Sean, and I'm here to help do some gear reviews, some training and techniques, and everything to do with what Theodore Roosevelt once said, the strenuous life. All right, today I'm excited, and just a little bit of background. All of the firearms and all the gear in review, as of so far on this channel, is all my personal gear or friends, or I borrowed it from somewhere else. So I definitely have zero bias on it. But obviously if I bought it, some of the things I don't like, and there's things I'm gonna point out, but I'm always trying to be straightforward and give you guys all the goods. So today, we're gonna be going over a firearm. I'm a Canadian boy, and unfortunately, I'm not gonna get into our draconian laws here, but we aren't allowed M4s and AR-15s in the bush. That's a restricted weapon. So I actually got one of those things just to kind of show you here. We're gonna do some comparables on them. But today we're gonna talk about the Israeli-made, and it hasn't completely taken over their entire military. They still run the M4s and still run other systems, but Israeli-made IWI X95. Alright, so why the IWI? Next to the fact that I can take this in the bush, this X95, versus the AR and the M4 platform, why is this a cool rifle? Why does it work? Well, just to give a little bit of a background, this is a Bullpup system. The Bullpup system is something that's been around a while. There's quite a few other weapon platforms that have had similar, or firearm platforms that have similar in the past. This is probably, in my personal opinion, one of the best ones you can get. And we're blessed that we're able to actually take it outside. So why is a Bullpup, what are the benefits of a Bullpup versus a regular AR-15? Well, the benefits are you have a 16.5-inch barrel. So the barrel, because the firing mechanism is actually below, the receiver is back here, your barrel actually starts right around here. Right? So that allows you to have a full 16.5 barrel, which makes it legal in Canada to take non-restricted, and it also shortens up the entire system. So if you look at the entire platform, this is what they call, CQB, close quarter combat kind of gun. And it allows you to have an extremely tight radius going around quarters or whatever it means. And in Canada, this is an amazing little coyote gun too. Great for hunting. Let's get into it. Let's go over mainly the differences of what I like. We're gonna start from the top to the butt. You have, like I mentioned before, a 16.5-inch barrel. It's chrome lined, cold hammer forged. It's CRMOV steel, which is a higher end steel for a lot of these firearms. This bad boy is obviously polymer built. Comes with a 30-round magazine if you're in the good old United States of America. Runs off of AR-15 M4 magazines. Here in Canada, unfortunately, we're stuck with LAR-10 or the pin 5-round magazine. The LAR-10 at this time, check when you're actually watching this video if it's still legal, because who knows which way we're going. But at this time, because it's technically a handgun magazine, you can put 10 in it. So if you can see the Bullpup system, it's quite a bit different in comparison to your regular, I'm just gonna pop this out, AR-15 platform. This is just a little Bushmaster, but it takes the same magazines, runs very similar on the system. Both shoot 5.56 and 2.23, of course. Let me kind of get into one of the things that I really like about the gun. The weight, it's a little bit hefty for a little guy, but I mean, you're compacting it all together. It's roughly about, I believe they say on the website, 7.9 pounds, but when you put some optics and weight, you're definitely closer to that 9+ pounds. But just how it sits overall, and you guys are gonna see some of the B-roll while I'm shooting here, it's very compact. You don't really feel it. I've added a couple extra things to it. One of them being, of course, I was blown away for the price point, the kind of optic you can get with this Vortex Strike Eagle. This is the 1x8x24 with the illuminated reticle. If you guys want me to do a review on this bad boy, just put some comments down below. I'd love to be able to chat. This was actually, for the price point, one of the best little optics for this type of platform. Okay, so let's start moving a little bit down here. Switch it on over. So you run Picatinny rails across the top. We have front flip sights as well as rear. When you put this mounting system, if you're not running just a regular red dot, obviously, unfortunately, it's blocked on the back, so you're not co-witnessing it. That being said, this has an etched-in reticle as well, so you're not really having to worry about it unless you break the optic. You can run down the side. It's a non-reciprocating charge, which means that every time it shoots, it's not blowing back. It's got a rotating bolt in it, which is kind of cool for mitigating some of that blowback. I know you're saying, Sean, stop being such a wuss. It's a 223, 5.56. You're not going to have much blowback, or much kick. But that being said, to have that multiple rate of fire and still be within that accuracy range, it's important to make sure that you're mitigating it, so you're staying on target. It's not about the one shot hurting your shoulder and being all over the place. It's those follow-up shots that count. So this is a true ambidextrous rifle, which is pretty awesome. If you compare it to a lot of the, right back here again, if you compare it to a lot of the M4 AR-15 platforms, like I mentioned, this is just the cheaper Bushmaster rifle. If you're looking at it, of course you can get them ambidextrous, you can get safeties on both sides, but you're finding a majority of them, the starter price rifle range, you're not gonna have that. Now, one of the biggest things I would say, I'd give an advantage to the AR over obviously the Bullpup. There's no extendability here, so with one of these guys, you're really able to adjust for your pull. My dad, for example, is not a big fan of the Tavor because he just doesn't like how it sits in his shoulder. It is something you have to get used to. It is a completely different feel than one of these guys. And it just takes practice like anything else to be able to shoulder it correctly and quickly and have your eye on target. Another important thing, if you are planning on using optics on this guy, especially not something like an EOS or some regular red dot, make sure you're gonna be getting proper spacing in between. I've used one right here. I'm not gonna recommend it, so I'm not gonna mention the brand, but I know Vortex offers some, Leopold offers some. This particular one, it's okay. Unfortunately, what I find is that I'm still gonna have to drop a little bit overly aggressive and get my cheekbone on there to get that weld. Whereas some of the other optics that stand just a tiny bit higher, you can get acquisition a little bit quicker. So that's something I would play around with. I wouldn't, for these bases, I wouldn't, rings, scope rings and bases, I wouldn't look at cheaping out on that. If you're gonna be putting some kind of optic, variable optic specially on it, make sure you're spending that little bit extra money and you're able to play with it and see it. Because overall, when it comes up, it feels amazing to me. I got really sucked back into that shoulder, sorry. I just gotta make sure that I can pick that up as quick as I can. So that's just a lot of practice of where your cheek weld's going versus it's almost like this particular firearm, you have to mold to the firearm versus the firearm molding to you. Whereas when you have, the AR-15 kind of configuration, there's a lot of flexibility. Obviously, you can buy aftermarket accessories for cheek welds and all those other things. It's probably just an overall more comfortable gun. This is also a lighter firearm as well. Okay, so one of the reasons why it is ambidextrous as well is you can pretty much change everything. You can switch over the charging handle. You can switch over the ejection ports just by switching it over. So left-hand shooters can actually take this because if you're not familiar with Bullpups, they're shooting directly out of the side. So if we're gonna have to come on this side, you can see where I can change the injection port to. Otherwise, I'm gonna be getting smacked in the face consistently and it hurts. They whip out coming out pretty good there. Just as a side note too, I'm just gonna throw this out. I've been using these MFT LAR-10 mags. They're the model numbers 10 PM 556. If you're in Canada, check these ones out, especially for this guy. I noticed that this versus the metal one just ejects and works way better. It's my personal opinion anyways, and maybe it's just my firearm, but I really do enjoy it. I would invest in some kind of forearm grip in the front. I actually usually mostly hold it in this kind of configuration versus this. This doesn't pull us back, but I noticed that it gets a little bit small and I end up holding it back here, which isn't the great place if I don't have something to grip onto. But once again, everybody's body positioning and so on and so forth is gonna be different, but something to keep in mind. There is a low pressure gas system as well. These bad boys come in, there are other IWI models. The original is the Tavor 21 that shoots 5.56 and 223 as well. But this bad boy comes with a configuration where you can actually get a kit to swap it out for 300 blackout or 9mm as well, which is kind of cool. And they do come in 9mm. They've just released, I believe it's called the Tavor 727-ish. Anyways, that's going to be in 308, and it's currently available in the States already, and I believe it's coming up to Canada pretty shortly. So if you're looking for more powerful bullpup, something in a larger caliber, that is going to be available for you shortly, or already is. What else do I love about this gun? Well, in the Bullpup Design, most of the weight, and this is kind of one of those things I was talking about earlier, is the AR platform is definitely a lighter, more compact firearm, or sorry, not more compact, but a lighter firearm, and it shoulders a little bit better. However, because if you're taking a look at the firearm, all the weight is basically, all the mechanism is back here. So right here we have, right here we have polymer, and then we're running barrel and polymer. But if you look at it, how it's balanced, it's definitely rear balanced, right? So the one thing that I notice is when I shoulder it, and if I shoulder it nicely, it feels almost lighter in many occasions than the M4 or the AR-15, because all of the weight is literally resting on my shoulder versus holding it on my grip out here. So if you have a good grip, you can really punctuate that feeling. Now, one of the things to notice, because of that, you actually get a little bit of muzzle rise, or a little bit more muzzle rise than you would with the AR-15. So it's just, I wouldn't say less controllable, but the biggest notice is when you bring this firearm up to sight, up to target, right? You're gonna be actually a lot of times overshooting. If you're an AR-15 guy and you've been using it forever, you're gonna notice when you bring it up, you're gonna bring it past the line of sight just because it's so much lighter in the front, right? So it's just something to keep note of. It's incredibly fast on the draw to bring up and release a couple. Yeah, it's a really neat firearm. So let's pretend load this bad boy. So obviously I got an empty mag here, so nothing to worry about YouTube. And then I'm gonna pop it up this side. So when we're reloading, generally speaking, we're popping it up, we're just moving it inside. Instead of the mag dropping straight like an AR-15, we're gonna drop it to the side. We're gonna press the release, just like that. I'm good at this. So then I'm gonna pop that back in there. I'm gonna charge the charging can. It's non-reciprocating, like I mentioned, so it's not gonna be blowing back and shooting at you, no problem there, and smacking you in the fingers or anything like that. The main difference is, instead of a mag release anywhere in this, or sorry, a charging release anywhere in this area, we're gonna bump this back here. So just to kind of imitate, if I were my last round, I would drop the round, eject the mag, pop another one, and I'm literally sliding it back. Now you're never gonna have any kind of movement back and forth. Last, maybe not last, pretend last, thing that we're gonna talk about is the trigger. Generally speaking, bullpups are infamous for disastrous triggers. And the reason for that is the mechanism, the firing mechanism is over here. So there's a complicated system, not overly complicated, but there's a system and a drag that fires it from back here versus basically exactly where the trigger group is on an AR. So if I were to compare, and keep in mind, this is not any crazy type of AR. If I were to compare, and once again, obviously, it's empty, nothing in there. If I were to compare the trigger of an AR, because it's an assembly and the entire firing mechanism is here, versus a bullpup, you're never gonna get apples to apples. You can get upgraded trigger assemblies for the Tavor. However, in my personal opinion, it's not really worth it. I'm gonna go over why, and the X95 is actually a pretty damn good trigger. But let's look at a comparison. Bushmaster, regular trigger here. We're just gonna do a quick pull here. If you watch with me, I'm gonna have a slight creep and a beautiful crisp, probably 4-ish pound let off. On my reset, nice and audible. A little bit of mush on this one, but like I said, this is not a high-end one, but all day, very pleasant shooting and very quick shooting rifle. We compare that bad boy to this guy. Mush, 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 bang, right? So we're gonna have a mush pull up, but this, and I wouldn't say you're probably a few millimeters. You got a little bit of a pull up here, comes to a wall, and then you got to release. This is probably one of the best bullpup triggers I've had in comparison, or I've tried, I should say. Compared to the Tavor 21, the original one, it's a night and day difference. One of the things I really like about it too is gonna be when we're a reset, nice and audible, and you're straight to the fire. So overall, Are you going to be able to shoot as quick as the AR platforms? No. Are you going to be able to be as precise possibly? No. It's not as good, but you're getting a lot of the benefits and features of the Bullpup design. And really, they are maximizing the trigger in this particular firearm. I've put over 5,000 rounds on this guy. I've only cleaned it a couple times, to be honest. It picks up, it feeds well, it loads well. If you find a magazine that it likes to use, you're gonna have an awesome gun. Downsides of this firearm, it is very expensive. In Canada, you're looking at probably about $2,600 to $2,800. I got this on a pretty smoking deal for $2,200, brand new. But generally speaking, it's closer to that $3,000 after taxes. The upside in Canada, it's non-restricted at this time, so you can take it into a bush and enjoy what you should be able to do with the AR. If you have any other questions, any other comments, you want me to review something, please shoot it down there. I look forward to doing some interviews with some amazing people. Comment, subscribe, hit the notification, do all those things all the YouTubers say, and let's let everybody be a modern caveman.